Takeda Shingen was a prominent daimyo, or feudal lord, of Japan's Sengoku period in the 16th century. He was known for his strategic acumen, military prowess, and his leadership of the formidable Takeda clan, which earned him the moniker Tiger of Kai. Kai being the province he ruled in the day, now an area primarily known as Yamanashi Prefecture. Shingen led many military campaigns against other powerful daimyos, such as Uesugi Kenshin, who is featured in several other samurai wargames, including Nobunaga's Ambition that I covered here already. And, speaking of the devil, Oda Nobunaga is also referenced in today's game as he and Shingen were contemporaries. They never directly faced each other in battle, however, though things might have been heading in that direction. Shingen unexpectedly died of illness before it could happen. Spoiler alert. However, Shingen's son, Katsuyori, did face Oda Nobunaga and his forces directly in the Battle of Nagashino in 1575 and was famously decimated by Nobunaga. Now, as for the game, this is one of those cartridges Hot B was known for. You have some excellent artwork adorning the box, an artistic representation of Shingen glaring at you with the fiery haze of war in the background. But then, on the cartridge itself, they decided to put the key for the abbreviations all over the top of it, as if anyone could see that while playing it, since the cartridge would be inside the NES's toaster door. The game released in North America in 1989, and the NES top loader, which would have made a visible key like this only sorta useful, didn't release until 4 years later. Thankfully, the manual has over 20 pages of helpful information, including more details about the menu abbreviations and what they're for. Another favorite game of mine, Palamedes, suffers from the same Hot B hijinks on its cartridge as well. Ugh. So anyway, let's take a closer look at this turn-based strategy game centered on feudal Japan, which, by the way, was surprisingly not developed by Koei. Let's see what's up. Now, if you've ever played a Koei strategy game of this era, again, like the others I've covered here, such as the pair of Romance of the Three Kingdoms games or the pair of Nobunaga's Ambitions, you'll acquiesce nicely into how Shingen the Ruler operates, as it is a similar construct. There's menus, maps, war, and time. But I would say much more watered down than those Koei games. Now that's not to say it's easier or lighter. In fact, its limitations might add to its overall difficulty, and successful playthroughs can take a couple dozen hours. But to get kicked off, the startup screen is kinda cool. Lightning streaks the sky, calling attention to the outline of who we can assume to be the eponymous warlord Shingen Takeda, posing fiercely with the silhouette of warring armies and a blaze of orange sky behind him. Now, starting a new game affords you the opportunity to play with or without sound. An interesting option out the gate, and your only option. Now, you start in January of 1545, and each turn in the game represents a month. Now, as you'd predict, your overall goal in this game is to conquer all 21 territories on the Japanese map. You start with 2 territories, the Kai and Shinano, which by this point Shingen had conquered at just 24 years old. At least, per this game's lore, that's true. Far younger than he's shown on the cover, but you know what? War ages you, man. So the game is divided into 2 primary modes: Domestic Administration, Snore, and Battle Mode. Now in the Administration mode, you're surfing menus and seeing what levers do what, essentially. There are 19 parameters you need to monitor, indicated by the abbreviations on the menu screen. These include things like harvest yield, the likelihood of flooding, levels of culture, loyalty, wealth, and money, etc. The manual is actually pretty helpful for explaining how to influence these values. For example, enacting farming policy like farming development enhances yield, as you would expect. Strengthening your castle enhances culture. Preparing with more doctors and flood control help prevent epidemics and disasters. Of course, you'll need to balance your resources against potential risks, and that's where the chess match really comes in. One trick I discovered is each year when taxes come around, crank that up to 100%. It defaults to much lower, and generally, this upsets people. But then if you turn around and put almost all of that profit back into aiding farmers through your farm policy, it enhances your loyalty and wealth significantly. So it's like pass and go and collecting $200, sorta. So that's the administrative system in a nutshell. Then there's the battle mode. You have 2 options. You can choose an automatic battle or a manual battle. Automatic battle will save you loads of time. The game essentially simulates the battle based on your respective number of troops, their rank, and probably other factors. Automatic battles are only recommended if you feel confident in your victory based on your army and what you know about theirs. For battles estimated to be tense, the manual system is recommended, but again, it takes some time. You move platoons around a battlefield and engage in tactical warfare. I think I prefer this system over Koei's tile system, mainly because it's a little lighter to navigate and I prefer it visually. In manual mode, you're tasked with dividing your army. There are 6 types of units in your army: infantry, lancers, cavalry, archers, riflemen, and headquarters, which are the dudes you don't want to have captured or you lose. You can then divide each unit, which makes them smaller and weaker, but more plentiful for a variety of tactical advantages. You know, the old divide and conquer. The terrain also comes into play here, causing limitations in movement or impacting defense. For example, soldiers can't cross deep rivers, rocks, or moats, and move slower on beaches, in forests, or across mountains. Your defense actually increases in forests and in mountains, and then plummets in rivers, as you'll be a sitting duck. There are also natural events that randomly occur and impact the game. Snowfall and storms cause armies to be unable to move, and disaster likelihoods increase. Same with heavy rain, which also impacts wealth and yield. If you're diplomatically savvy, you can form alliances by marrying off your children, or you can send ninjas in to spy on your enemies. And because this game is super long, thankfully, there's a battery save option. Just go to the save command, and of course, you're encouraged to push reset as you power off the system. And in case you have no idea how to do it, the manual recommends using 2 hands for efficiency. Then when you're ready to hop back in and continue your campaign, simply hit continue and you quickly reload exactly where you left off. As for the music, it's good. It really is. There's just not a ton of it. And if you commit to playing this one, you're going to hear the same music over and over and over again. However, it's calming and suitable, and you eventually get used to it. The sound effects jingle, beep, and bloop appropriately and inoffensively. The music is credited to Kazunaka Yamane, who composed tracks for a few NES classics, including River City Ransom and Double Dragon 1 and 2. Overall, this game, while maybe not quite on the level of its Koei counterparts in terms of depth and polish, does deliver an extremely competent and engrossing experience for tactical strategy fans. Shingen the Ruler shouldn't be seen as an also-ran or a copycat. It offers its own brand of chess, albeit with limited modes and options. There's only one scenario, one difficulty level, one objective, and limited pathways to complete that objective, which will certainly take you days to accomplish. If you can't get enough Takeda Shingen, he is often a featured daimyo in many feudal Koei games, though a direct follow-up to Shingen the Ruler doesn't exist. However, Shingen the Ruler itself is a sequel to a Famicom game simply titled Takeda Shingen. In Japan, Shingen the Ruler is actually Takeda Shingen 2. The Famicom original that stayed in Japan was, as you'd expect, released without English text. However, there are English patches available if you have an opportunity to try it out any way you can. From what I can tell, it's a similar idea, but with a less visually appealing menu and map system, pared down administrative controls, but with some decent-looking battle screens. Reviews for it are mostly mixed, but I suppose it was competent enough given we covered its sequel here today. Worth noting, there's also a Japanese arcade beat-em-up simply titled Takeda Shingen that released in 1988 and didn't make its way to America until 2021 on the Nintendo Switch. The game was ported in 1989 to the TurboGrafx 16, where the graphics and color palette were altered and a few more levels were added. Well, that's going to do it for Shingen the Ruler on the NES. As always, if you didn't conquer a few daimyos by age 24, what are you even doing with your life? And thanks for watching.